Good afternoon, everyone. In just a minute, we will begin the official live stream of this broadcast from Generation Success Youth Ambassadors. For many of you who are not familiar with us, I just want you to kind of get an understanding of who Gen Success is and why we do what we do. In 2015, we started this program as a 501c3 in New Orleans to provide educational support to students, but especially those with exceptional learning needs. Since then, we have provided educational support to all students, but we have begun to branch out into various avenues of leadership, youth development, and then overall community give back and success. And so this is one of those kind of opportunities that came to us from one of our youth ambassadors. They got together, well, actually it was a couple of them. They got together and decided that they wanted to host youth panels that they created, that they wrote questions for, that they moderated. And Generation Success said, why not? This is what we train you guys for. This is what our mission is and what we believe in. So we gave them the platform to do so. This is Youth Panel Conversation number 2. It is with a couple, or actually 3 of our wonderful New Orleans finest. They will introduce themselves, but I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, who is Leoance Williams III. Leoance Williams will give you more about himself, but as our moderator, he has been the person that has corralled and done the scheduling for this event. He has been the person who set up with the peers to make sure that they were in positions to be able to ask questions and create those questions together as a team. And so I'll let him introduce himself and then take it over from here. I will be here to just interject with audience questions. If you are interested, please visit us on the website, http://gensuccessnola.org, and on Facebook at Gen Success 504. Leoance, please feel free to unmute yourself and take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leoance Williams. I am a student ambassador and your moderator for the second Generation Success Youth Panel. Today, I am joined by a few of my other panelists, and I guess we can start with the first person I see on here. William, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am William Bostick. I currently go to St. Augustine High School. Besides that, I am running track currently, and I am also on the fast track of looking for a art college or a college of digital media, because I plan on becoming a game designer or graphic designer when I plan on after I get out of college. So yeah, that's about all for me.
William, tell us your age and tell us your grade, please. And Leoance, you might want to tell people that what school you attend and your age and your grade as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am 16 years old. I attend St. Augustine High School, and I am a junior.
I am 17 years old, and I am a junior as well.
Dominic, you mind taking it here from here?
Okay, I'm Domonic Hornsby. I go to Brother Martin High School. I'm going into freshman year. I'm 14 years old. I run track and field. I do Boy Scouts, cross country, and some other activities.
Thank you, Dominic. Zion, tell us about yourself.
My name's Kenney. I go to Warren Easton. I'm 16. I play in a band. I'm running track. Oh,
and you are a, oh, thank you.
Thank you, Zion. I would like to direct this to the officers here. If each and every one of you would like to introduce yourselves. Let's see. Guess we start with Mr. Reginald Koeller.
How you doing, Mom? My name is Reginald Koeller. I've been a member of the New Orleans Police Department for 16 years. I've served in various assignments throughout the New Orleans Police Department, but my current assignment is actually in the 4th District, which is across the river now. and I am the Fisher Housing Development Liaison Officer in the 4th District.
Thank you. If you mind giving us your badge number as well?
Badge number is 593.
Thank you. Let's see who else is here. Mr. Merrill Merricks, sorry. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening. How you guys doing? My name is Sgt Merrill Merricks. I've been with the New Orleans Police Department for 23 years. I'm currently assigned to the Community Engagement Unit. Previously, I worked in child abuse, sex crimes. I see my old partner on here, Detective Sgt Corey Lymous. We work together in sex crimes. I'm also a product of the great St. Augustine High School as well. So I want to throw that in there as well. Go Purple.
Well, thank you, fellow alum. Thank you for that introduction. Mr. Lymous, wait, how you pronounce that? Is it Mr. Lymous? I don't want to get that wrong.
You got it right. My name is Corey Lymous. I'm with the New Orleans Police Department. I've been there approximately 20 years now. The last 14 years I've been employed within the Special Victims Section, which includes child abuse and sex crimes. I think I heard you ask for a badge number. My badge number is 255.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Now that everyone's acquainted with each other, I can start off with my first question. In your opinion, what does it mean to protect and serve? Anyone can start it off, just trying to get a look for everyone.
Well,
I can answer that. You got it?
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
In law enforcement, those are the two words we live by: protect and serve. Protect is, of course, protect those who from being victims of crimes and from any other aspect that may go against, I guess, human life, period. And to serve is another part where we are there to assist, because a lot of times our job doesn't imply that it's always dealing with some type of criminal aspect. We're here to, I mean, you might see police officers getting cats out of trees, snakes out of houses, whatever it may be. That's the service part. But we also there to, because we wear many hats. So there are times where we might take off this police hat and be a social worker, be a father, be a brother, be an uncle and sister, or mother, whatever it may be. That's where the service part comes in. So again, we live by two words, protect and serve, but they necessarily don't go intertwined with each other.
Thank you. Officer Lymous, you mind taking over? Heard you're trying to start off the first time.
Well, no, actually, you covered it pretty well. The service part, it means a lot of different things to different officers, and it sort of changes according to the venue or what we look at as the call for service that you go on. You know, we try to meet the community's needs by giving them the services that they expect from us and that they expect from us. Now, as far as the protection aspect of it, a lot of times we're going out on calls, you know, the general call is protecting the community from an identified perpetrator of some sort of crime or a villain. There are some very unique cases where we go out and we're protecting the community from itself, such as situations where there's mental health issues and that person may be experiencing some sort of mental health crisis, and we have to intervene and get them the help they need by bringing them to the hospital or to a mental health facility. Or sometimes we go into situations that are maybe a domestic violence situation where they haven't quite perceived that there's a danger there that we need to protect them from. And in my particular case, I work a lot with child abuse cases. So a lot of times we go in to help and provide that service and protection for defenseless victims. So, you know, I think that both of those words sort of interchange or change according to the environment or the situation that you're dealing with.
Thank you.
When it comes to the service, especially the service aspect of our job, a lot of people don't understand that being a police officer is more than writing traffic tickets, taking people to jail. The service actually comes when you're able to assist your community in the things that they have going on. A lot of times we as police officers do way more than actual police work. Like Sergeant Lymous said, we spend a lot of times protecting people from themselves, but we also try to give back to the community. We try to educate the public. We try to make sure people understand that our job is here to help them and to assist them, more or less looking for rules and laws to enforce. So the service aspect of the job is really the heart of police work. The protection comes as part of the job that needs to be done. We're that person that's going to step up when someone is at their lowest, when they feel they're not safe. And we try to assist them with that by enforcing the laws that we have on the books, by, you know, giving them the ability to know somebody's there, somebody cares. If you call, somebody is coming. And that is, you know, the essence of what we're trying to portray as a police department.
Thank you, Officer Koeller. Let me try getting some of the youth involved in the conversation. William, what do you think, in your opinion, is protect and serve?
I can't really say it better than they did. Honestly, seriously, I can't really say it better than they did. They're the ones who do it every day. So, you know, they protect us, they protect their community, and they also serve for their community as well. I can't really say anything else than that. They really, like, from what I see every day, they definitely do their job perfectly, like every single day. And like, you know, having an adult friend that's a police officer, you know, she kind of from like personal experience, the way she carries herself, like you just know, like she's great at what she does. So yeah, I have no words.
I have a comment from the audience. Hearing that Black males specifically and youth in this city are, at least from William's perspective, supportive of your work, what does that make you feel to the officers?
I'll personally say that's one of the biggest things that we strive for. I mean, to hear that our young Black males, the ones that we encounter, the ones that we deal mostly with on a daily basis, that they're supportive of our work is something that just brings overwhelming joy to our job. I mean, we try to explain to people that as being a police officer, we're not out to get people. It's not our job to look for people to arrest or look for people to throw in jail. Our job is to serve our community through the best ways we know how. And to actually know that you have people that support you in this difficult line of work is one of the best things that you can have as a police officer. In order to be an effective police officer, you have to have the support of the community that you serve. If you don't have that support, you cannot effectively do this job, no matter what you do. So that's extremely encouraging, knowing we have that.
Right, because to add on to what he said, because I agree with 100%. When we put this uniform on, our objective is to go out and be role models. We want kids to look up to us and not run from us. So most of us are products of our own environment and products of our own community. So, you know, when and I can honestly speak for myself, growing up, I saw good cops, and that's one of the things that encouraged me to be a cop. So we go out, and our mission is to actually leave some type of impact on the young kids out there so they can see us and say, hey, Mom, that's something I want to do when I grow up. You know, in spite of the environment that we're living in right now, I can honestly say, you know, NOPD has been one of the leaders in ensuring that community police is working. So kudos to the young men who see us as being role models and being positive, because those are some of the things that we need and we need to hear.
Go ahead.
Okay. So as you said, like the community is one of the biggest reasons why, like, you know, police officers are able to do their job, right? Like their support. Just like quick side note, like without that support from the community, like how would you be able to, like, you know, do everything? Would that be like a hindrance to you, or like, you know, would you be able to just to still be able to carry on like what you do without the community like behind you? This is speaking from a person who completely supports like what you guys do.
I could chime in on that. Actually, without the community's support, we cannot do our job at all. You have to realize that the police department, we respond to a call for service or a 911 call or some sort of complaint is made. So we come after the crime is committed, after the deed has been done. So everything that we do is based upon finding somebody that was there. So whether we're finding witnesses in the community that maybe someone that observed whatever the crime is, if it's a homicide, you know, those types of things require community support for us to accomplish the goal of what they say, finding the bad guy. So it's always important to have the community involved. And then just from a social aspect, the things that we try to do as far as just notifying the community of various crimes that occur in their neighborhoods or trends that we see. We need the community to get the word out. I mean, something as simple as this type of forum is very important. This is a community engagement that, you know, we're getting information out to you guys based upon what you did or based upon your needs. So, you know, everything that we do is based upon the community's response and input. I'm sorry, somebody.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next question is kind of a conjoined question. How would you say the police force in the last 10 years have been? Start off, Dominic, you mind answering that?
I mean, like I can't really say like anything about it because I wasn't like involved with anything, but it hasn't necessarily gotten worse or better for me, honestly, because I don't really know what to say about it. But like, it's been, I guess, changing, I guess you can say, a bit, in a way. Like, I don't know how to put it, really.
Dominic, I'm sorry, Leoance. Dominic, when you say it's been changing, what do you mean changing? Are you
Like,
talking about opinions about it or tactics?
I meant like opinions about it, or maybe tactics too. I wouldn't say like cops that look like us do the same thing, but like certain cops like in certain states have been like doing certain things that have not really been good at all, to especially to us, like our race as a like whole, honestly.
Thank you for that. So I think the question to the entire panel, officers and youth included, have you noticed that there is a trend sometimes for negative interactions from police officers to specifically Black individuals, males or females? And if so, what can you speak on or speak about in how should we move forward with that?
From like within the last 10 years, like Dominic, I have not experienced anything bad. And in fact, in the NOPD in itself, like I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, in the other states, that's completely different. Like I remember hearing once that, you know, what like the other officers do, like, you know, they do their job just like everybody else, but you know, there's those certain few who like just make it harder for them to do their job. I've definitely been noticing a trend of that. You know, they like, it's not just us that, like, you know, are feeling something from that. It's not just us. And it's kind of irritating, you know, because, you know, they feel something too. You know, they're trying to figure, like, why are you guys doing this? You know, you're making our jobs harder. And so, you know, I've noticed that within the last 10 years, you know, them stepping back and realizing, hey, like, why are you guys doing this? So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a trend.
Let me stop you. What I don't want is the very generalized they. Put a name to it or be specific. Who are the people that you feel are not doing what is supposed to happen? Who are the agitators that you think are not moving in the way in which they were designed to? Or who are the people that you are naming who are not satisfied with what these collective others are? Because it's getting very, very circular. So be specific about what you're saying. Are you saying or questioning or assuming that there is potentially a bad apple in the bunch of officers? Overwhelmingly, we've said that we appreciate what the NOPD has done, but what specific thing are you pointing out?
I mean, specific thing I'm pointing out is just like the stuff that's been going on the news. I mean, every time, like, not every time, but when I turn on the news, sometimes I just see like these events that are happening, and, you know, I can't really put an exact name on it, I'm sorry, but, you know, there have been situations where, like, police officers do some really messed up stuff on the news, and, like, you know, they have recordings of it, and I guess that's what I'm talking about. I don't want to, like, exactly bring it up exactly, but, you know, the incident where, you know, the guy had his knee on him, or there was a story where
George Floyd. Again, we're not going to talk around it. We're going to be honest. That's who we are. We're going to name it. The George Floyd incident has caused you to have some consternation.
Yes.
You have stopped to have some issue because of George Floyd. So I'm going to stop you there. Officers, what can you tell him in this respect about how he feels? Because clearly what I am seeing, and William, tell me if I am wrong, you have a little bit of fear in naming it and calling it out. And I don't want you to have that fear at all, because this is a transparent space, but it's also a safe space. The officers here have given their time freely, and they wouldn't be here if that weren't the case. So I think they want to be able to get to you what's important, but you've got to be able to be clear about it as well.
All right.
I can address that. I know Bostick. I know his dad. I know him, so he knows how I am. And to the current climate we in right now, being a Black police officer, we want people to know that the things that happen, in no way possible, we agree with that. And in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, yes, the public should be outraged, but who should be more outraged should be Black officers, because it always appears that it's happening to us. And when I teach officers, I have to constantly remind them that this job is just an occupation. I stopped being a police officer when I hit my door. My wife makes sure that when I come in the house, I'm no longer a police officer. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and so forth. So it's just an occupation. But this Black skin that I wear is not. I mean, I'm a Black man. I'm a Black man for the rest of my life. And I have to feel the pain that young Black males today feel when they have that encounter with police, because they shouldn't feel like that, number one. But we have to admit that white supremacy has infiltrated law enforcement. Hate has infiltrated law enforcement, and it's our job to identify and eradicate it. It shouldn't be the public's job. It should be our job, because it starts with us. And I can honestly tell you, NOPD has been the forefront leader in creating, we have a program called EPIC, which means Ethical Policing is Courageous. And to give you a brief idea of what EPIC does, when you saw the George Floyd situation, you saw 3 cops standing around doing nothing. And that's what EPIC does. EPIC puts that burden and that responsibility, that moral responsibility on those 3 officers to say, hey, get off his neck because you're wrong. If you don't, you're just as guilty. And of course, that's what happened with those guys because they didn't step in. So the fear shouldn't come from the police officer. The fear should go to the police officer from us. He should fear us because if we allow it to happen, especially to our young black male, we're part of the problem. So you may not hear it, you may not see it, but trust me, the problem is being addressed. And I can honestly tell you here at NOPD, we have addressed it. We continually address it, and we do not have that problem on this job. Now, we're trying to get that to expand to other law enforcement agencies because the phones are ringing off the hook with other agencies calling and want to know how do we deal with it. And that's one of the things we advise them. It has to start internally. And we have to change. The officers have to change because one of the things I do is I tell officers we must humanize the badge. We must make people see past the uniform and look at the person. What happened to George Floyd wasn't directly reflected. It wasn't a direct reflection on the police department, but it is a direct reflection on that officer because what he did was what he did. And like you said, don't call him police, call him by his name. And that's what we want people to do. Stop saying the police and call them by their name. And in return, again, it's our job to police the police.
To piggyback off of what Sgt Merrick just said, one of the biggest things that we have to pay attention to is that particular situation was unexcusable. And I say that as a police officer because every police officer knows that is something that we do not do. We do not put our knees on people's neck. We do not, constantly keep them pinned down like that just so that we can prove a point. That was not policing. And that's why Sgt Merrick is very specific in saying, call him by his name, because a police officer would never do anything like that. I would never do anything like that. And I would never allow one of my coworkers to do something like that. The biggest issue in police work is this is like any other profession. There are people that should not be doing this job. There are people that do not have the mindset to be a police officer. And one of the biggest things that they teach you as a police officer is you have to have thick skin to do this job. You have to know that you're going to be put in a situation where people are going to try to provoke you. They're going to try to test your patience. They're going to try to insult you and obtain some type of rise out of you. It is incumbent upon you as that police officer to be professional, to remain calm, to say, look, I understand you're having a bad time, but this is not how this is going to go. And there are professional tactics in which you can do that. A lot of people don't understand. A police officer's voice is his biggest tool. You can control a situation by how you speak to somebody. If you go on the scene and you start screaming and shouting, naturally, you're going to obtain that same thing in return. If you're calm and professional and polite, eventually people realize, wait a minute, why am I losing it and this person is totally calm? You can't argue with yourself. So that particular situation is something that is 100% unjustified. There's no excuse to it. It should have never happened. But like I said, the biggest issue is we need people to see the person behind the uniform, not the badge and say, this is what they do. Because like I say, anybody that's on this panel, I can guarantee you would never not only do it, but would never allow somebody else to do it also.
The only thing I'd like to add to what those guys said is, well, first of all, to that young brother, you have reason to be fearful of what happened. Just as the other 2 officers said, I mean, my job as a police officer is just that, a job. But even before my job, I have a job of being a father. I have actually 4 or 5 children teenage children that are on these streets. And I want whatever encounter they have with the police for them to walk away or drive away, whatever the case, but I need them to live. So that being said, the fact that you've observed an officer, somebody that wore this badge, to commit that heinous of a wrongdoing, you should be fearful. And I do say this much, just my personal opinion. right now is a time for change. It's time for you young brothers and sisters to stand up, and you guys let your voices be known so that the change that takes place models what you want of it. I like to think sometimes because we're in the system, we don't see the effects that this system as a whole, and I say the system, not just policing, the criminal justice system, the court system, and so on and so forth. We do see some of the negative effects of it on the community because we're on the inside. You know, a lot of times people won't say what they really feel. So really, that's why I appreciate this forum that we're having. People don't say what they really feel about us to our face. You know, we hear the radio talk shows and we see the blogs on internet providers, but we don't hear it all. So this is a time for you guys to stand up, make the change in this law enforcement and this criminal justice system, and make the system look the way that you want so that it does, in fact, fairly treat our African-American community. So that's all I would say.
Well, thank you, officers, for your insight, and thank you, William, for your question.
You're welcome.
We had a question from the audience, and the question said, what can the public do to better understand you as a person, especially like how can us as teens, as we are the people, can better understand you guys as both police and people?
I think one of the biggest things that people have to realize is I am a professional doing the job. I'm a human being like everybody else. The same things that upsets the people that I deal with are the same things that upsets me as a person. I think a lot of times we get caught in the idea of having instant gratification for what we want. And I say that because a lot of things can be resolved. The problem is they have to be resolved in the proper time. As being a police officer, we take it as part of our job that we're going into a situation that we don't know a lot about. We accept that. We have no problems with doing that. But a lot of people want to kind of deflect their attention away from what you need to be doing to handle other things. And sometimes you have to tell them, look, I need this to happen this way now. I need for you to do what I'm telling you to do. And the reason for that is not to be overbearing or trying to be dominant in a situation. It's just so that you can sort through what you're going on. And like I said, a lot of dealing with public and dealing with the people in the public is first knowing who you're dealing with, knowing what the situation is, and then trying to figure out what's the proper course of action that you can help so that we can remedy whatever the problem may be. So a lot of times it's just, getting people to cooperate with you and do a little bit of what you're asking for. And sometimes that little bit of cooperation can make a totally horrific situation extremely peaceful. And that's one of the biggest things that we normally ask for, especially I know I do in police work. Like I said, 16 years on this job. I worked in numerous areas. I was a member of the SWAT team for 4 years, and I know what it takes to achieve compliance without violence. So those things assist quite a bit when you're actually speaking with people and you're trying to diffuse situations.
Thank you, Officer Koeller.
To big piggyback, because he's 100% correct. It starts with effective communication, but that communication actually starts with us. In the past, and we talked about this earlier, the police in the community pretty much had that village approach. Of course, that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and everybody played their part. And we have went away from that. And we're in the process of trying to go back, but we have to have some type of dialogue. So one of the things we tell our officers is when you're riding in a neighborhood, let the windows down. If you're not on a call for service, step out of the vehicle and go talk to people. Because if you don't, only thing they see is you in that vehicle. And in most cases, you look like you're canvassing and you're casing. So it starts with us to get out of those vehicles and approach the community and talk and be approachable. But also, we need the community to open their hearts. And like we said earlier, look beyond the uniform and see the soul and the heart that this officer carries. Because in many cases, if an officer may approach someone, that person may already have a perceived notion that I don't like police, I'm not going to talk to you. So it goes both ways. We have to do the approaching, but at the same token, people have to be approachable as well. So that's what needs to happen.
Excuse me, Sergeant. I don't mean to interrupt you in your explanation, but personalized question. You said the community has to really open up and be open to see the real you, but how do you approach someone who, as a child, was traumatized by the police and is lashing out at you? How do you get them to understand?
And positive reinforcement. We have measures in place where, especially with kids, where we're trained on how to deal with situations like that. One of the things we do is, and I'm kind of responsible for that, because we're trying to change the generation. We're not just trying to change, the adults or whatever. We're trying to change the generation pretty much. And it starts with the younger kids. So one of the things we do is we put stuffed animals in vehicles, and we tell officers, if you're riding down the street and you're not on a call for service, you see a young kid, stop and give that kid that stuffed animal. That attention alone would change that perception of that child with the police, because now you see positive reinforcement, positive interaction, and so forth. So we have to be the change. And again, it goes back to positive dialogue. We understand why people don't like the police, especially what's going on in the current climate right now. But at the same token, we have to get out there and pretty much do as much as we can to change that perception. That's why a lot of people say, I thank God for NOPD because we don't have that problem. And it has a lot to do with because of what NOPD is doing. So we know the uphill battle that we're dealing with, but we're willing to climb it to make sure that at the end of the day, the community and the police is working together as a partnership and as a team and not against each other.
Thank you, Sergeant. Yes, William?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to ask. Not judging, in my community, how could I help, let's say someone I know, a friend of mine, he says that, I don't like the police force because of what I see on the news, but I, as a person, know that that's what they don't do. How could I help him, and also include, anybody else in my community, help them view you guys as people behind those uniforms and not what's on the news? How can I, help them with that? Because there's a lot of people in my community who just don't want to hear that.
So one of the biggest things with people is communication. Opening up dialogue is the #1 way for people to get their feelings out, but it's also the way that we can kind of see what their point of view is and show them that there are other points of view that they may not have considered. A lot of times the best advocate that you have is, like Sgt Merrill said, is that positive reinforcement. When you have people that you can go to, when you can talk to people, when you can have them, say, look, officer, I don't have anything against you, but this is what I'm seeing in police work throughout our world, throughout our nation right now. What is there that needs to be done? What is the bridge that needs to be gapped? And a lot of times what you find is that simple communication is the key to a lot of the problems that we're having, to have these forums. And one of the biggest things that you can do is invite them to this forum that we're having right now. And that is a way for them to get their questions out, where they can feel safe and comfortable and ask the questions that they need to ask, but they can also get realistic answers from people that do this every day. And like I said, myself, Sgt Lymous, Sgt Merrill, they were more than willing to do this because they know this is something that needs to be done. This is something that our community is desperately in need of. And that's why we're all here today.
True, right?
Thank you, officers, sergeants, wonderful students and teens. I want to flip this a little bit because I see that we have a burgeoning group of people who are watching now. Officers, what can you tell us about the community that you especially want our teens to understand? particularly as it relates to the things that you guys may see in your jobs? What are some critical components of living in this community that they should likely keep in mind? And it's not just about their interactions with officers, but specifically, I know a couple of you have worked in sex crimes. What are some things that we need to be mindful of as parents who are watching, but also as teens who are listening and interacting?
Well, I'll jump in. One of the biggest things that I would encourage our young men, and especially our young men, to be aware of, in the state of Louisiana, there's two laws that I think a lot of us just don't pay a lot of attention to. One is the carnal knowledge law. Unfortunately, we're investigating so many crimes, carnal knowledge, and that's basically if a person over the age of 17 engages in sexual intercourse with someone under the age of 15 and under. And you know, that's for me, that's one of those laws that I think it's sort of a lot of things that should have been discussed before that legislation passed. The problem with that is it could be something as simple as a senior in high school being in a relationship with a freshman or a sophomore in high school. And that difference could be, if brought to the police, could be something that ends up in an arrest. So be mindful of that. Also, I always talk to young men about the sexting laws. I've even had this conversation with my own kids about it because I know it's so prevalent, sending pictures back and forth between friends and groups. And unfortunately, when one of those pictures get outside of your group, it ends up law enforcement matter, and we've been having to prosecute a lot of cases like this. So, I mean, we could probably talk about that all day, but those are the two that we're seeing coming through our office more and more. And we're seeing good kids that are unfortunately being introduced to the criminal justice system because of these acts.
Okay, how would you say that we can go about changing that narrative?
How do you change it? Well, as far as changing it, we just need young people to be more vigilant and aware, first of the laws. A lot of times we get, by the time law enforcement's introduced into these situations, the first thing we get from the person that we're arresting is, I didn't know that. So I think part of it is we in law enforcement community, we need to get out more and more in the community and educate our young people on these laws. And then also once we educate them, I think a lot of that falls back on parental responsibilities, just making sure the parents and everybody know what these laws are and are able to intervene in the kids' actions. So, you know, the biggest thing is we need to get that information out to the community, but also to some extent you have to be some self-preservation, and the community needs to get out there and research these laws that's available to them.
Another thing, just to piggyback off of what Sgt Lymous said, a lot of times we find in situations that people have questions about certain things, but they don't bring them to law enforcement. They don't ask us. And, you know, we have a great group of men and women that are more than willing to get out and discuss these things with the community. You know, we have those difficult conversations with people. We tell people the truth as to what they can possibly be facing and what's going on. So one of the easiest ways is simply just to reach out. You know, you reach out to somebody, you ask them, hey, can you get somebody to come and explain X, Y, and Z to us? We are more than willing to do that. Like I say, as a department, I mean, these gentlemen that are on the conversation with you are here on their own free time. They don't mind stepping up to the plate and addressing these things. So we're definitely willing to assist with those types of things. You know, only thing we need to know is, you know, this is what needs to happen, and, you know, we need to be a part of it.
Another thing as well, we as a society has gotten away from that village approach that I talked about earlier. because everybody's on their own personal agenda. And as a result, our kids are being raised by social media. So we have to do our part, because a lot of people, the minute something happens, they call in the police and thinking that the police can basically solve all of the problems that they may have. And people have to understand we cannot police ourselves out of this situation. We are all part of the solution, but together we can change the culture that we're living in right now. One of the things I did when I was in sex crime, and Sgt Lymous assisted me as well, was we went to the high schools and to the colleges and to the middle schools, wherever schools we was invited to, or allowed to go to, and we educated young men and women about sex crime laws. Because we saw an influx of kids coming through those doors and being charged, and what I call they made a kid's decision and had adult consequences. So, and like Sgt Lymous said, a lot of times they say they didn't know. So it was our responsibility to go out and educate them. But we still need help from the community to reinforce that at home, because the teachers only got you for a certain amount of hours. When you go home, those responsibilities, that education still need to be reinforced at home. So it calls for everybody to come to the table, have that conversation, like Officer Koeller said, that uncomfortable conversation that a lot of people don't want to have, and realize that we're not here to punish and put kids away. We're here to make sure that these kids don't make that mistake. And if that mistake is made, they learn from it. Therefore, in their future lives, they're able to educate other people about what they went through. Therefore, that person won't make the same mistake. So it calls for us to have that conversation and bring back that village approach.
Thank you, Sergeant. I heard you when you were introducing yourself, you lightly touched on the subject, but what do you see in your community?
Well, my community, you mean where I live or just where I work, just the community overall?
Both, where you live and work.
Well, I'm currently in Jefferson Parish by way of Katrina, of course. And like I tell most people, being a Black police officer, it comes with some benefits, but my color doesn't. So when I come home, I have to drive through a city that has been identified as being the #1 place for a Black person to go to jail in the country. And that's Gretna, Louisiana. Tell it like it is. And don't get me wrong, they got some great cops that work over there. It's just a stigma that they're living with right now. So when I'm home and I'm out, a lot of people see Black before they see blue. And I have the same fear that you guys have. So where I live at now, I make sure people understand that being a Black police officer, I don't see certain things the way they expect me to see it. Because at the end of the day, I'm Black 24/7, but I'm blue only 8 hours a day. So I clearly understand why people are protesting. I clearly understand why they're talking about social injustice and racism, because I am a victim of it as well. So being a cop it doesn't hide me, it doesn't shield me away from all of those issues. But I have to admit, and I have to be the voice to say that, hey, it exists and we need to deal with it. Now, when I go out to the community that I serve and where I work, I have to be mindful that, like I said earlier, people see the uniform and they see the police. So it's my job to make sure that they see the person inside of that uniform and say, hey, Sgt Merrick's, Sgt Lymous, Officer Koeller, there are some good guys. And that has to do with a lot because you met us, you talked to us, and you learned from, and you didn't see us as an avatar of being just a policeman. So again, it starts with dialogue. And in order to change the community, we have to get out there and become a product of it.
I also want to piggyback off of that. I think a lot of times the community gets stuck on the stigmatism that somebody has, kind of an image that somebody has created for them. And that's most of the time we find that's not the case. Our community is made up of some of the greatest, most diverse individuals that you'll ever meet. We have people that have extreme talents that you'll never be able to find anywhere else in the world. The problem is, I think too much our community gets stuck on New Orleans is a violent city, or New Orleans has a drug problem, or it's mostly with their poverty. Even in these communities where you see a lot of this type of activity going on, when you actually start learning from some of these people and you start talking to them, you find some of the most knowledgeable people that you'll ever meet. They're intelligent, they're smart, they just don't use those talents in the manner that they should be. Part of our job as police officers is back to that service aspect. We want to show them that, hey, you can use these talents and do a whole lot of other things with them. You don't have to commit crimes in order to be, socially acceptable by your community. You can be that person that makes that change, or you can be the person that somebody else models their change after. So a lot of this has to do with not buying into the narrative, just like we as police officers. The police are getting hammered in the news media right now. And when you see the things that's going on, it's rightfully so. Everybody has questions, everybody has fears. But our job is to change that narrative. Look, we have good police officers that are going out here every day. They're doing the job the way it's supposed to. And that same thing has to translate to the community that we're serving also.
Thank you. Yes, Zion?
I have a question for the officers. So, like, with everything that's going on right now, how would you say y'all would like to help out and better the community and, I guess, regain the trust of the people? Because I know right now in a lot of different states and probably here as well, some people don't trust police as a whole.
So my number one way of doing that would actually be to educate the community more. And unfortunately, while you're actually at work doing the job, you don't have a lot of opportunities to do that. But there are different forums where you can explain to people, hey, I know this may look bad to you, but let me show you the bigger picture of what's going on. I can break down the situation and say, this is the reason why we're doing or should be doing or not doing. And that kind of changes people's mindset of why the police act in the manner in which we act. A lot of people don't know. You take something as simple as a traffic stop. A traffic stop is one of the most dangerous things that a police officer can do, simply because you don't know what you're getting ready to walk up to. You may be getting ready to approach a vehicle that has a mom that's late from picking her kids up from school, all the way to having somebody that just finished committing murder, and they're thinking that you're there to apprehend them. So that wide spectrum of what's going on is a lot of unknown, especially for a police officer. That's why these situations seem to be so tense. That's why they seem to, always follow that bad trend. But when you can explain to somebody, this is the reason why we're doing this. This is the reason why I'm giving you the commands that I'm giving you. This is the reason why I'm asking you for what I'm asking you for. It not only educates the public so they know what to do and what to expect, but it also shows, hey, this is why this needs to happen until we can get to the point where we can actually discuss what's going on. So I think a lot of this has to do with simple communication. A lot of it has to do with education. These are the principles in which we can actually affect the change that we need to affect.
Thank you, Mr. Koeller. Sergeant, you got any words for us on the topics per se?
I'm sorry. I have a quick question that just came through. What is in this village mentality? What is the number one action step that if we left this call right now, we can go and do? And that's to anyone that's on the call, teens as well as officers. What is the number one action step if we left right now today that we can do? Especially with social distancing. Let's not be crazy.
I say personally, coming from the team's point of view, the same way that someone can post something on social media saying bad things about the police and that goes viral, I think we should try uplifting people and posting more positive stuff saying how our community should come together as a whole, instead of having the Black community always trying to fight the police, which some of them are the problem, yes, but not every officer does something wrong, such as putting their knee on someone's neck. Mr. Koeller obviously said that he doesn't put any knees on anyone's neck. So I feel like we should start posting more about the joyful, not the joyful, but the helpful stuff that the police do, instead of keep continuing to highlight the bad, which is sending a bad note for the police who actually aren't doing the wrong things.
We should post the joyful things too. So if we see officers dancing in their offbeat, we should absolutely post them and make them famous.
Adding on to what Leon said, yeah, I agree. I definitely think we should take a more positive approach towards things because, you know, after I leave this call, I think the best way to deal with this right now is not to add more negativity to the situation. I think it would be a better idea if we add positivity to it, because, like, you know, as they said, they can't really do their job without the community. So why not we do our part and help them out? We can't really help them out if we're just adding on more negativity, because more negative things are going to happen. Like was said, if you view the world negatively, you're going to see negative things. If you view the world positively, then, you know, there's a better chance of you seeing the positive. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we should leave this call with a positive mindset towards the situation.
Anyone else have any thoughts on what should be the next steps after we leave this call?
I guess like the next steps would be to like highlight the good instead of highlighting the bad, and spread positivity instead of negativity.
I would just encourage us to first to establish an open line of communication between the community and law enforcement and maintain that open line of communication. I think if we do that, that allows us to address problems as they come about and not allow things such as social media and the media in general to dictate what our thoughts are going to be. If we have that communication with each other, then we should be able to work out whatever the problem is. So I'll just leave it at that.
I think one of the things we should have is we need to have more dialogue about what's going on, and so we can get to know each other better. This is a perfect opportunity here. I applaud it. I'm actually doing something next week where I have some police officers that's coming up, and we're going to talk about how we feel about certain things that's going on in the country right now, because you got to have some type of dialogue so you understand how people feel. So this is a start. We need to do this a lot more often, and we would like for you guys to be our mouthpiece. So just the fact that you guys are talking to us now, you can take that message and go out to the community and to your friends and say, hey, I had a conversation with some police officer. It was very positive, and this is how they're feeling. So this is a great start. Let's just keep it going.
So what I hear you say, Sgt Merricks, is that you are open to me calling you and bringing you in to talk to our youth a whole heck of a lot more often. That's what I heard.
That's part of my job, of course. I love doing it regardless. You know me. I mean, it doesn't matter. If it's an opportunity to change and to give young people a different perspective of police officers, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, I'm always there. I love this.
Oh, you don't know what you've done, but thank you so much.
I honestly believe that a lot of people don't realize, as a police officer, these are the types of things that you want to do. This is what you signed up to do as a police officer. You know, everybody sees the running, the jumping the fences, the chasing the bad guy, but, you know, to educate the community, to talk to people, to get them to know you, to get to know them, to understand their questions and their concerns, to address, what we could, as a police department, can be doing better. This is what we signed up to do. This is the job that we all asked for. So I don't think anybody would have a problem with, having this conversation or, attending these forums or whatever the case may be. I mean, this is how you effect change, and this is how you get things done.
Right. Because one of the things we're doing now with the New Orleans Police Department, we're going to what's called geographical deployment. And that's a form of community policing. And what it does, you're going to have one officer who's going to be primarily assigned to a certain area. And that's that officer's area as long as he's working in that district. So the purpose of that is so the community could get to know that officer. So whenever he comes to work, he's specifically assigned to that location. So, and like Officer Koeller said, it creates dialogue, it creates communication, and now it gives that community a better sense of belonging because now they know this officer, they're gonna know him by name, and they're gonna be able to call on that officer as well. So that's one of the things NOPD is doing now to embrace community policing and worked in the past, and we're just trying to go back to that so we can basically, change the perception again.
I have another audience question really quickly. So the question was, officers, what's your opinion on having more social workers going into schools instead of you all?
Corey?
You're muted, Sergeant Lymous.
Okay, there we go. Well, actually, I think it's a good idea. Our unit, I guess I'm sort of biased because my unit within the police department, we were among the first to fully staff our unit with social workers. Right now, I have 7 social workers assigned to my unit, and they do a great job. And now, as far as sending them to the schools, I do agree that it is a good job because it's a good idea because a lot of things that police are called to the schools to address, I don't believe are law enforcement problems. And why I say that is because law enforcement, a lot of times we're limited as to how we can respond to those problems. And those limitations often lead to someone being introduced into the criminal justice system, where it's probably more effective to have a social worker or a civilian respond to it and provide services or help to that situation rather than consequences, which typically the law enforcement community has to offer. So any opportunity to lessen the number of kids that are being introduced to the criminal justice system, I'm all for it.
Right. Let me respond to that as well. I was a school resource officer for 8 years with NOPD. And when people hear about police officers being in school, they always assume the negative. As an SRO, I was assigned to McDonald 28, John McDonald, Sarah T. Reed, John F. Kennedy. And we wasn't assigned to the school. We actually worked in the school. We was there. That was our 8 hours a day daily routine. And I can honestly tell you 99% of our job had nothing to do with police work. We were there to basically be part of that village again. And I can honestly tell you that was the best part of my career because the kids got to see the police. They got to have a relationship with me. And as police officer, and again, it depends on the officer that's working in that school, I found myself going to these kids' homes, going on field trips with them, and they saw a totally different side of the police. And that's the part that people need to understand when we say police officers in school, we are not there to arrest. We're there to educate and prevent. Now, there are times where, yes, some kids went to jail, but those were because there was crimes that was committed that we pretty much didn't have control over. But we also educated the school system to let them know we are not here to arrest. We are here to make sure that these kids clearly understand what's right, what's wrong, what's the law, and so forth. So we were more like school administrators instead of police officers. So to say that you're going to take the police officer out of school, in my opinion, is a bad idea because now when a police officer is called, they are strictly going over there just strictly to make an arrest instead of going over there to try to de-escalate the situation and try to ensure that, everybody gets their due justice. Because like Sgt Lymous said, we don't want to start putting kids in jail over petty crimes. And that's one of the things that the SRO made sure didn't happen. So I'm kind of for it I'm for it with the social workers, but taking officers out of school, I'm kind of against that.
Let me ease your mind, Sgt Merricks. They're not taking you out. The push is so that more of the funding will be appropriated first to social workers. You guys will be called in, as you should be, as a last resort, because there has been, and I'm certain you know this, I'm a former administrator, so this is kind of the wheelhouse for me. There has been a large gap in funding for counselors and social workers for way too many years at this point. And we're seeing the results of it in our communities. So now the push is, or the focus is trying to rearm schools with the ability to better service their students by putting those people back into positions to help kids on the front lines first.
I agree with that 100%, and that's the exact definition of defunding the police. A lot of people got it thinking that we are trying to get rid of police. No, we're just allocating that money to a more positive resource, and I am 100% for that.
Just a personal question is that you brought up the defund the police. Your personal opinion, where would you put the money if it wouldn't be in there?
Okay, I'll give you a prime example. We had a 9-year-old that was killed. I think that was last week. Prior to that, this 9-year-old's father was dealing with his son who was leaving his home in the middle of the night, stealing cars, breaking into cars. And the father asked for some help. He asked for some assistance because he felt like his hands were tied. And those social entities who should be responding, like Sgt Lymous said, social workers, counselors, whoever it may be, anything besides the police is where that money should be going, because those are the resources that we need. Again, we cannot police ourselves out of this situation. So we're going to have a job, because no matter what, crime is going to exist. So, but we need to put that money toward more social programs to help kids, to help families with a better way of life. My opinion, it should go toward quality of life issues, and because it's definitely needed. So that's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it.
Also, with Sgt Merricks, with that being said, a lot of this funding needs to go back into the community itself. The programs that keep kids out of trouble, giving them something to look forward to other than, go and commit crimes. This is the type of stuff that needs to be supported. When, you have a child sitting around with an idle mind with nothing to do and all day to do it, eventually that mind starts wandering, and it starts wandering into the wrong places. And I hate to say, but coupled with the influences of whatever community they may be in, that can also lead to be another issue. So sometimes the best solution is stop a problem before it begins. And if we can fund programs that are going to assist that, I'm all for it also. That's something that we definitely need to look into and have.
Here's my personal push really quickly. Thank you, FTO Koeller, for pointing that out. There is a group of us with the New Orleans Youth Alliance who are screaming as loudly as we can as people in nonprofit youth development. These are the times that you all, when we are talking about taking next steps, go into your communities and start having those discussions as well. Nonprofits are struggling, especially those that are smaller, like Gen Success, and more importantly, and I'm just going to call it out, those who are Black-led and Black-governed are particularly struggling, again, like Gen Success. It is very hard to find funding for us, and then once we find the funding, we're expected to do so much with about 20 to 40% less than what our counterparts receive. And so as we're talking about where to put funding, I am pointing fingers at all of our youth programs in New Orleans, especially those who have gone through third-party evaluations like Gen Success and have been labeled as top-notch, high-quality options for the city. We need that support. So sorry, Sergeant Lymous, jump in and give us your answer.
No, actually, that's what I was about to say. When I look at, actually, to give a little bit of my background as well, I worked with a program years ago before I was a police officer in Jefferson Parish where we garnished funds to help reduce the incarceration rate of juveniles in Jefferson Parish, which at that time was the highest. So I understand the difficulty in getting those funds, and that's what I was about to lead with. It's so important that these funds go to those advocacy groups and those types of organizations that you're talking about. You know, you can't really pinpoint any one particular discipline to spend the money on, but there's so many out there and there's so many groups that are already doing the work that just need the money to get it done. And when we're talking about defunding the police, I am all for it. When we understand what that term really means, I'm all for it. We have a really large budget. And if us buying another, I don't know, a tank or something helps, you know, not buying another tank helps build a community, I'm all for it.
All right, guys, we're going to start to wrap up and close out for the evening, but are there any last minute thoughts or anything that our officers and esteemed guests would like to share with our youth panel? Anything that our youth panel ambassadors would like to share with the officers or our guests? Now would be the time to get your thoughts out. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Just like random. Does the officers have any questions for us?
Does or do's?
Does the officers have any questions for us?
So grammatically it's do. Do the officers have any questions for you all? I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn off now, I promise.
Okay.
I mean, as far as having questions for you all, I don't think we necessarily have questions. I think more or less we're trying to, you know, show that we're here for you all. We're here to support you all. We're here to help. We're here to step in and do that service part of our job that, you know, everybody is saying that is lacking. And the biggest thing is we were all in your position at one point. You know, I'm the youngest one here. I joined the police department when I was 20 years old. So I was the young kid that really wanted to be the police, that was not going to take no as an answer. I saw from, you know, being a young black male to being the police, and I see the discrepancies. I understand what you all are going through. I know the concerns. I get it. And one of the biggest things that I look forward to is, you know, teaching my peers about what I experience, what I see, you know, the things that I know of going on and where we can improve as a police department to better serve the people that we're protecting.
I would like to know if this conversation changed you guys' perception of police.
Go ahead, Zion.
I'm gonna be quiet.
Say it.
Go ahead. If you have something to say, you might as well speak it.
Oh, I know. I was just giving other people a chance to speak, but you know what? It has. Before, you know, I already had a positive perception, but I think now more than ever, I kind of want to, you know, show that, you know, the police is not what they are in the news, and I want to, you know, like we said earlier, give a more positive reinforcement on that. You know, I gotta find a way to, you know, like this is my thing to do, but I gotta find a way to, you know, like show the positivity, you know, like make a something on social media for something, because that's where everything flows nowadays. But honestly, yeah, I think that after this call, I'm gonna probably make something to, you know, help you guys out, because that's what I feel my job being a part of the community is.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it like changed my view because it wasn't positive nor was it negative. It's just like I feel like it's more of like for like the bad police out there, it's more of like finding them and looking at their motives, or more like when hiring new police officers or training them, looking at their motives or their like goals or anything, or like their past or any background information about them on like what their like views are on like people as a whole, or our people as a whole, I should say that.
In order to get that information, you have to talk to them, correct? Great.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that last statement, the police screening process is one of the most intensive processes there is. I mean, there is a huge system of checks and balances in order to be a police officer. The biggest issue is once a person becomes a police officer, once they're put in that position of power, that's what really shows the true merits of that individual. And I hate to say it, but there's an old saying that power corrupts. Power makes people believe that they can do things that aren't acceptable. And part of the job that the police have is policing ourselves, making sure that we're held accountable for the things that we do, whether they're wrong, right, you know, making sure that that information is brought to the public so that everybody can see what's going on. The bigger issue is you have a lot of people that start off very well, but as they go along, or as they, you know, increase, as they get comfortable with the power that they have, they start trending into the wrong directions, and you start seeing some of the biases that they have come to light. And so some of the programs that the police department has started has been, you know, bias-free policing, which is something that has been taught at our academy for quite some years now, but it's also taken, you know, a front page to what's going on in our community also. So we see the things that are going on. We're trying to address those problems, but we're also trying to root out the potential problems that we may have in the future. So these are some of the behind the scenes things that are going on a daily basis that the general public is not aware of, but we as a police department have already taken steps to address before they become a problem.
Leoance or
So you
Zion?
kind of cut yourself out.
Leoance or Zion, would either of you like to answer that question? Have your ideas or opinions about officers changed after this conversation?
I'll start first.
Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I guess I could say it has changed my way of looking at the police and how they do things. 'Cause I mean, I never thought of them like in a negative way, anything like that. But like, I definitely can say that we do need to like spread a positive image and start to help people see things different.
Thank you, Zion. Personally, I wouldn't say that my opinion changed for you guys, because my only opinion was that the police are good people. They just have some people who aren't necessarily fit out for the job, like Officer Koeller said. I wouldn't say it changed. I just said it educated me. It has me more informed of and what does it mean and what does it take to our community. Yeah, anybody else?
All right, perfect, guys. If there are no other thoughts, I'd like to take this time to thank our youth ambassadors. Two Purple guys from St. Augustine and one Purple alum, one Warren Easton and one Brother Martin. I'm just going to go ahead and represent that there are two McDonough 35 folks at least on this call. Thank you so much, Officer Koeller. But we'd like to thank you all sincerely for joining us this evening and giving us your voice. These are the types of conversations that we live for our youth, as well as for our community's officers, because there has to be more of a village mentality for us to move forward. And I'd like to just take a moment to specifically thank Sgt Merricks. Something you said that I retweeted or reposted was that you can turn off your job, but you can't turn off your Black skin. I think that is something that a lot of folks who are up in arms about police officers forget. You know, we give some of this idea and some of this conversation and leniency and empathy to people in the military, but we do not do so for police officers. And I feel like that's a grave injustice in our community. And so thank you guys, and hopefully we've given you an opportunity to showcase how wonderful you are. We will definitely be calling you again to work and talk with us. I didn't hear Sgt Lymous say he was open, but I'm just going to assume that he is, and we'll call him too. Thank you.
I'm definitely there. I actually speak at a lot of different schools, so I'm definitely available.
Awesome. Makes my heart smile. If you guys have nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and start to close us out, but we don't have any more audience questions. Again, thank you so very much for joining us, and I hope you all have an amazing afternoon and evening. I'm stopping the live stream. All right.